Today, I'm interviewing Mr. Lance Cobb, who served aboard the Battleship from 1989 until it was decommissioned, and he served aboard the Deck Division, where he achieved the rank in the Navy, ultimately at E5 bosun mate second. Today's date is July 14th, the year 2011. Of course, we're aboard the Battleship New Jersey, here berthed in Camden, New Jersey. Lance, thanks so much for talking with us today.
You're welcome.
Let's start off the conversation. How did you get involved with the Navy? What made you join it?
Well, I always wanted to join the service. It was just which branch. Actually, I wanted to go in the Army first, but they didn't have the job I wanted.
And what job did you want?
I wanted to be a diesel mechanic. And they said, oh, well, that's going to be 6 months, maybe a year. And I didn't want to wait that long. I wanted to, to go. So what I did, I went down to the Navy recruiter. And I told him, I've already taken the ASVAB test. And he said, really? I said, well, yeah. I said, I want to join the Army. And I said, they don't have my job. And he says, he says, well, when you want to leave? I said, as soon as possible. He said, I tell you what. He said, come on in here. I'll go over your paperwork. And I said, so we'll see if we can get you out of here. So about 2 weeks later, he called me and said, are you still interested in joining the Navy? I said, yes, sir. He says, well, I'll tell you what, you can leave in about 4 days. I said, that's fine with me. And I joined the Navy, and I headed off to boot camp, Great Lake, Illinois. And from boot camp, I was stationed aboard the USS New Jersey, and that's how I joined the Navy.
And could you describe boot camp for us at Great Lakes?
When I left Philadelphia, it was about 20 degrees. I got to Great Lakes, Illinois, about 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was minus 10. And, they got us in, they checked us in, and then we had to walk from the in-dock center to our barracks, which was about a mile away. And there, the company wasn't completely complete yet, and we had about 50 guys. So in about a week, we formed a whole company. The first week, they're just, making sure that you're okay, that you're not sick, you don't have any trick knees, no joints are going to pop out of socket or something like that. And just really, really make sure everything is fine, because after that, then you're going to go, into, the physical part of it and the drilling and getting up on time. It wasn't that hard for me. I'm a pretty laid back guy. No problem listening to authority. Do what you're told. And I'm an early bird. So I had really no problems getting up early. And I played football in high school, so I didn't mind the PT.
Didn't bother me. Which high school?
South Philadelphia High School.
South Philadelphia. And what position did you play?
I was known as a tailback or nickelback.
Did the Navy ever have you play in any of their teams as a result when they found that out?
No. The Navy does have a basketball team, I believe, but no. We played little flag football, but back to the boot camp. It wasn't that hard.
So once you're finished your boot camp, what happens next?
A week before graduation, you get an assignment. You get to pick, which I later found out you really didn't get to pick. They just made you feel good. Me, I wanted to go to California. So I put California. I didn't put, I want to get the shipyard in Philadelphia. I put California. I got Long Beach. I got the USS New Jersey, and my company commander, he was reading them off. And he gets to my name, and he goes, Cobb, how did you get on board the Jersey? He says, how did you get on board a battleship? I said, sir, I don't know. I just put, California. I don't even think I put where I wanted to go. Like some people picked, some guys picked out San Diego. I don't think I did that. I think I just picked out California. And my first duty station was the USS New Jersey.
So you didn't continue with your diesel mechanic interest at that point?
No. Once I got on board the New Jersey and they assigned me to Deck Division, I was like, man, this is where I want to be. I had no problem busting rust and chipping and painting and being outdoors, and I loved it. It didn't bother me. Some guys, I want to be a bosun mate. Not me. I enjoyed every single minute of it. I had no problems painting and grinding, and it was great. You outside, no problems.
And while we're talking about your work as a bosun mate, what were some of the problems aboard the Battleship New Jersey that were particular problems for the bosun mates on the ship? Any area that had to be painted a lot, repaired a lot, holystoned a lot? Do you recall anything like that?
Well, as a deck seaman, and then onwards to as being a bosun mate, as a bosun mate, your job is to preserve the exterior of the ship, to maintain your equipment, the boats, the anchor windlass, the anchors, the capstans, the rope. All of that has to be maintained because it's exposed to salt water. The areas that will always, rust first, the bulkheads, the decks, the lifelines, they're brass. They'll get that patina on there. Captain don't want to see the patina. He wants it shiny all the time. Anything and everything that's going to be exposed to salt water has to be maintained. And we do that by stripping it down to bare metal, priming it, and then painting it. And you can't cheat, because if you cheat, the rust will bleed through. And then you don't want that, because it's going to be
something always interests me. The ship obviously is made out of metal. It rusts a lot.
That is correct.
A lot of corrosion. When you're at sea with all kinds of ocean spray all over, how do you clean off, scrape off the rust, undercoat it, and paint it without the seawater getting on it? How's that done? What do you do?
You can put up tarps. You can wait till you're not really in rough seas, or it's going to rain, or you wait till you import. Mainly when you're out of sea, you're not going to do so much. You'll do your PMS. You do your preventative maintenance, your 3M. You'll do that. Materials, maintenance, and management. You'll do that on your equipment that's coming up for maintenance at the time. But normally, if there's a large area to be preserved, you're going to have to wait to get import. And before we pull in, you're going to have a freshwater washdown. And then when you do pull in, you're going to have another freshwater washdown.
What is a freshwater washdown? How do you conduct it?
A freshwater washdown is used with the ship's fresh water, because you can't use salt water to do this. So the fresh water that's already stored on board the ship, you use that to wash off the salt water. You want to wash it down good. You want to scrub it down to make sure there's as much salt off the hull or off the bulkheads or off the deck as possible. All the little cracks and crevices, you want to get the salt out of there, because those places are, tight little cracks and crevices, and rust will get in there, and then it will spread underneath the paint, and then the paint will start to bubble up. And then that can lead to bigger problems, where you have to needle gun a bigger section or sand a bigger section to get to the rust, to get down to the bare metal.
And what is a needle gun?
A needle gun is a pneumatic gun with a bunch of little needles in it. And when you pull a trigger, they go back and forth, rapidly. And that's what it does. And it just eats away at the paint, eats away at the rust till you get to the bare metal. But you have to be careful, because it also pits the metal. And pitting the metal allows air to get trapped underneath when you go to prime it and paint it, which can also lead to rust. So you might want to sand it. You may have to sand that area to prevent that. So sometimes you don't want to use a needle gun, depending on what you're trying to take care
of. I guess when you're hosing a ship down with fresh water, you must have people out there, scrubbing it with brushes and make sure any of the saltwater brine gets,
Oh, sure.
It's a big job. It sounds
sure.
like a very big job.
It's the whole division. Sure. It's the whole division. Normally, that job normally falls to E3 and below, while the E4 is holding the hose, wetting the ship, and of course, wetting you, because they think that's funny. But it's E3 and below, scrub brushes, and is you start at the front, and you do your area. What your division is accountable for, and you do your area. The next division does their area, and you just wash it down. Normally, BM1 or chief will come by, inspect it. Not clean enough. So of course you do it again. They come by, inspect it, and then you try to dry off as much as possible. But even though it's fresh water, the residue can still be there. You want to dry off as much as you can and wipe up as much as you can. And then if it's not that bad, you just take care of the rust spots, and the rest takes care of itself.
So when the ship is in port, unlike other people who might have a lot of leave, your group will go to work because you're not in salt spray all the time. Is that when you do a lot of work when you're in port?
Oh, of course, you have to. You have to. That's when you really, really, really want to get as much of the rust as possible, because that's when you have the greatest opportunity. You want to take care as much as possible, especially the hard to reach areas where a lot of salt spray will come up, like underneath a decking. You want to get up there. You want to hang your cargo nets. You want to get up there and get yourself in a good, comfortable position, because you're going to be on your back, and you want to take care of that.
So, did that hurt the morale of the deck division, where you see other guys walking off the ship for a week or so, and they're going on tour of Italy, and you're painting there on your back with a paper?
No, because you have duty. You have duty days. Your ship's work. Normally, when you're overseas, is holiday hours, so you may work from 6 to 12, 6 to 1, sometimes 6 to 11. Then it's knockoff ship's work. The duty section will normally pick up what needs to be done during the ship hours. So if you got duty that day, you got to stay on board and finish up. But what you don't want to do is, ship's company not doing enough and leaving the duty section to do a large quantity of the work. So you don't want, so you want to make sure that those guys really, really, really take care of, at least 80% of the work, versus, them leaving you 60% and they go skate off, into the Philippines somewhere.
Did that happen?
Of course. Of course. All the time. We leave that for the duty section. Everybody does that, of course. Yeah, we'll leave it for them to do. Unless, chief comes by and says, nah, we're not going to leave that for the duty section.
So it really depends if you had a good chief or not. Some chiefs are better than others, right?
Of course.
As far as
Of course, always. Some are, taskmasters, some are laid back, some are just angry all the time. You pick your poison.
Now, as you're walking about the ship today in the year 2011, obviously the ship doesn't have thousands of men aboard to maintain it.
No.
So what do you see that especially stands out as a former boatswain's mate that say, oh, this has to be taken care of? What do you see?
The deck. The deck especially. I'm looking at the deck and I'm saying, wow, the deck is insane, because the planks haven't been replaced. Of course, naturally, I know that. The rubber, we would have to scrape that rubber out. We had to maintain the decks because the teak deck is critical, and we would have to maintain that. So I would say it's the deck. I didn't say too much rust. I didn't see too much rust. It looks to be in pretty good shape, but the deck, the teak, needs to be maintained. You go into another ship and they say, where did you come from? And you say, oh, I came from the New Jersey. And they go, what? You got a battleship? Man, I tried to get on a battleship. I said, just luck of the draw. I think afterwards, I don't think I ever sat back and said, wow, maybe once or twice. And I remember that aha moment. I do. It was on the way to Seattle, and I was standing aft watch on the stern, and I just said, wow, I'm in the service, and I'm on this ship. I said, wow.
And how long had you been on the ship at that point when it struck you that this is a unique vessel? Anyway,
3 months. 3 months. I knew that this was different. I looked down because I could see, the screws were awake, and I was thinking. I said, wow, if those guys in Philadelphia could see me now. I said, wow, this is going to be an experience, And I said, I'm here. I'm here for the haul, and it didn't disappoint. It didn't disappoint.
Now, who was the captain? Well, tell us. The captain was.
At that time, the captain at that time, I can't remember his name.
Was it I should know off the top of my head. It's
Tucker. I don't think it was
Captain
Tucker.
Tucker. Tucker
No.
was in the 80s. I forget who.
I don't think it was
Okay.
Captain Tucker.
You don't think it was?
But I remember Admiral Reason. This was his flagship. I do remember that. I don't remember the captain.
And so you largely sailed out of Los Angeles. Was your
Long Beach.
Long Beach, I'm sorry.
Yes, Long Beach.
was your duty port at the time.
Yes.
Talk to me about then. Well, first of all, before we get there, how did the men like the captain? How did the captain treat the men? Forget who he was, but we can look. I'll look that up. I should know. Top of my head.
Only thing I know about the captain, he was firm but fair. He had no problems giving guys restriction. I know that much. I never got on restriction myself, but the guys that did, I mean, he gave it to him 30 days, 45 days. He didn't really give out too much 50 days restriction. It was,
restriction to quarters after you do your job on the ship.
couldn't leave the ship.
Couldn't leave the ship.
Couldn't leave the ship. Yeah, he if you got in trouble, he didn't take no slack.
Did you ever get in any problems with the bosun mate by any chance you were telling us about before?
Oh, plenty. oh, wow.
When you're 18 years old.
What didn't I get in trouble for? Whether it was hiding in the bourbon compartment, not doing what I was told, painting over rust, you name it, I did it. Not doing what you told. You're 18. You're 18. Everybody 18. Man, I get that tomorrow. Oh, you come back to the ship. Seaman Cobb, come in. Didn't you have that to do? Oh, yeah, being one, I had it. You know where you're gonna be tomorrow? You're gonna meet me at my bunk or my your rack at 5 o'clock, cause he got to get up. You got to get up, and he meet you up on deck, and either you got a holy stone or you got to do all the bright work. Routine, nothing major, just roundabout stuff that a young guy just joining the service gets into, learning the ropes, the trials and the error, and paying for it, not ducking out of anything, taking your stripes.
But you moved up in rank, however. You actually get out of the Navy as an E5, which is fairly decent. Sure.
Well, I mean, I never didn't. I always did what I was asked to do, did what I was told to do. But occasionally, I'm not gonna get to that today. And if you get caught,
how
gotta pay for it.
How are the chiefs in charge? You mentioned there are all types of people. So somebody who's a chief bosun mate, been in the Navy 20 years, 25. What was these men like?
My chief was BMC Jordan. And he was a pretty laid back guy. I didn't want the chief in 6th Division. He was a maniac. Stone cold maniac.
What do you mean maniac? Why?
He was just crazy. Everything was screaming and hollering and slapping guys. I mean, I think he spoke fluent Spanish and fluent Tagalog, which is the Filipino national language. I believe he did. And he just, but you couldn't, I didn't want him as a chief, but I was just in awe of him. He had tattoos everywhere, and it was nothing that he didn't know. I mean, it was nothing he didn't know. I mean, to me, he was the epitome of what a bosun mate should be. And that's what I think I wanted to be. As much as I didn't want him as a chief, I think my whole time in the service, I wanted to be just like him. I wanted to always know. I wanted to know. And like I said, he was crazy. He was in charge of 6th Division, and he had those guys wound so tight that they would be walking on eggshells. But it's one thing. If he made sure that they knew what they were doing. And like I said, I didn't want him as my chief, but I was in awe of him as a bosun mate. I used to say, wow.
How was the morale in your division, 2nd Division? What was the attitudes of the men? Did they want to do the work? Was there a lot of complaining, or were they just happy to be there?
Very little complaining. More than happy to be there. And 95% always did what you was told to do. Always. Because you knew, you're going to get off sooner or later.
Now, one thing I researched, I've interviewed people from the ship from World War II, actually building the ship, up to almost the present. You're about the last group I would interview.
Okay.
And something I saw when I looked at the cruise books. You know what the cruise book is?
Sure.
Right? The cruise books from World War II all the way up to the present, what I saw are faces. And as a historian, I look at faces. And in World War II, the faces were all white, except for a little group of darker faces off to one side, and it had these massive pictures. But as the cruise books go through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, all the faces start blending together.
Sure.
A lot integration, on and on and on like that. How did that work out? How was that working when you were aboard the ship during the late 80s? Integration of the crew, African Americans, whites, Filipino, whoever it might be, Mexican, come on. How did that work?
It worked fine. It worked fine because from the time you get to boot camp, you're going to be with guys from all over, even guys of your same nationality. He's from Kentucky. He's from Indiana. I'm from Philadelphia. You get a guy from New York. And because you're young and you're being broke down, and all of the things that you were maybe raised with or where you was raised, you see that it's not that way. I have to let that go. I'm here now. I'm with 10 guys from that are Hispanic descent, or guys that are 2 guys might be Native American, 1 guy might be from Caribbean, and 10 guys might be white guys from some from the deep South, and you have to let that go, because that's what the military does. It makes you a melting pot because you need each other. You will be weeded out. You will quickly be found out if you're harboring any type of hate or racism. You will, and it won't be tolerated, because I've something I always think about. Everyone is the same age, and that pretty much puts everybody equal here. And when you get a bunch of guys that's together, everyone says, you know what? He got to go. He really has to go.
Yeah, what would happen if you found a guy who was anti-Hispanic or anti-whatever in
That
your
might be.
group?
That might be.
How would you guys deal with them?
That might be a closed door session.
What's a closed door session?
Chief and first class is up on the deck, and the guy that he might have, oh, I don't like Mexican guys. Okay, really? So the door gets shut. The best man come out. Nobody gonna say nothing. We call it getting your mind right.
So those closed door sessions, would they also be used for guys who were goofing up on the job or lazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's weird. Like I said, we kind of, as being all together, deck seamen, just new and all together, we kind of like really policed ourselves. You didn't really go to your chief for an issue like that. You didn't. You kind of, that was kind of hush hush. Hey, I know you. Okay, you're from Texas. Fine, but you're here now. How you was raised in Texas, you when you go back to Texas, you could do that all day long. But as long as you're on this ship with the other, 1,000 of us, this is the way it's going to be. And if you don't want to be here, just say, hey, look, I want to leave. The military isn't for me.
How about in the late 80s when you're in the Navy to 90s, the role of women starting to change in the Navy? How about that? Now, how did the ship was still all male,
right?
But yet they're starting to set up facilities for female Navy personnel. What was the attitude of the men as the Navy's becoming integrated, not only race, ethnicity, and all that stuff, but sex-wise? What was the thinking at the time? And go back to that time if you can.
Oh, sure. I ended up, actually, when I was on board the USNS Mercy, it was a hospital ship. 80% women. 80% young women. 80% young men. What do you think happened? Nature took its course. Boyfriend and girlfriend, fighting over girls, girls fighting over guys. Then my third ship was the USS Prairie, which was a destroyer tender. 80% women. Pregnancy. Anything that was, to me, it was a floating high school because everyone is 17, 18, 19, or 20. What do you expect? What do you expect? Everyone is there. Mom and dad not here. No one's going to tell you, hey, don't get drunk. No one's going to tell you that. You do what you want to do. And, naturally, it can lead to a lot of headaches. It can. It really can.
So, would you say being on an all-male ship like the New Jersey was easier than being on a ship that was male-female? Because of obviously it would be happier for you to be as young guy on a ship with a female.
Sure.
But which ship ran better at the time? Male-female ships or all-male ships as far as efficiency?
Well, I think efficiency really wouldn't really determine whether it was male or female. Maybe the evolution that was going on, but I couldn't really say that. I would have to say a male just because. But as far as being a male and female, it'd probably be 55% male and 50% female as far as efficiency. All male ships slightly edge out a mixed crew. Slightly edge out a mixed crew. Because a female still has to do her job. Now, when I was on the tender, we really didn't have them doing too much. We would say, she 5'2", 110 pounds. We know she really can't pull on the moor line. So we put her in the back. We do that ourselves. The guys, don't worry about that. Or it was a working party. We know that she not going to be lifting up a 70-pound bag of rice. So we just kind of say, listen, you maintain the hatch. So I guess it wasn't so much, women getting a break. But as young guys, we wasn't going to put that on a young lady, that's right next to you.
How about being commanded by a female officer?
I didn't have any female officers.
Okay.
I had female senior petty officers, but my ship was commanded by a captain. He was a man. He was a man. So I didn't have any. I think.
Or female petty officers.
I had a few. They didn't really bother you. They didn't do too. Only thing they just asked you to do what you were asked to do. If you was told to strip this bulkhead down, strip the bulkhead down. So it wasn't so much that it was a female. It was a fact that it was a petty officer telling you that this is what I need you to do for today. I mean, it's the uniform, not the person.
Did you see any difference in the way they dealt with the men or women, enlisted men and women, if they're a petty officer or an officer? Female officer, petty officer, male officer, petty officer. Was there any difference in their leadership?
Always.
Tell me about it.
A female officer or female petty officer will always treat a female different. Always. Because when they're talking to a male, it's still a male. When they talk to a female, they don't bite their tongue. In the same way with a male officer or a male petty officer. I had plenty petty officers who just dogged me to the bone. But when it came to the females, oh, Burton, y'all ain't got to worry about doing all that. The guy's going to take care of that. Oh, thanks, Petty Officer Hatton. Like that. So
there's a little bit of sexism there.
Oh,
On both ways.
Of course. And even when I became a petty officer, I'm not going to have, the females, like I said, at the working party sweating out in the hot sun. I'm just not going to do it.
I just wonder if you have any friends still in the Navy today, if that maybe has gone even farther, where there's less seeing somebody as black, white, Hispanic, male, female, whatever it is, and just as a Navy person, you say. I wonder if that's changed even more. Have you?
I have friends that's still in. And what they're complaining about now is immaturity. A lot of immaturity.
Immaturity among
Not thinking that they should get X, Y, and Z. Perfect example, my good friend Frank Sabella, he's a CW04, Chief Warrant Officer. Came up old school like I did. From E1, became a BMC, became a CW01, CW2, CW3, CW04. And what he sees now is a lot of immaturity. He just, about a month ago we talked. He said they went on deployment and a seaman recruit came to him, Bosun, can I talk to you? He said, what's going on? Oh, I think I should get a Navy Achievement Medal. So my friend Sabella said it took everything in him from slapping the teeth out this guy's mouth. You want a Navy Achievement Medal just because we went on deployment? Do you know how hard it was to get a Navy Achievement Medal when I was in the service? You had to do something tremendous. He went on deployment and just thought that he should get a Navy Achievement Medal just because. So my friend says, he said, listen, I don't want to talk about this. And he says, just the immaturity. They're just not the same. They're like, he said, they're more needy, a lot, just needy. You know, you can't, you know, they need a lot versus, like him tell me, you know, boats, when we was in, it was BM3 said, do this, it was, get it done. Now it's why? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do this? You do it because I told you to do it. He said, you can't even say that now. So, you know, he said, I don't even want to talk to him. He said, that's what I see. There's a lot of immaturity issues. That's what he sees. Yeah.
I would second that. We'll talk about that later, with teaching in college. Now, so we can sort of wrap up this part so we can get up and walk around. What were your reactions? Is this the first time you're aboard the ship since you served on it?
Yes.
So what were your reactions coming aboard it today since when were you on it
90,
last? 89, 90?
I got off here in 91 when we decommissioned.
91. What? First of all, what went through everybody's minds when you found out the ship was going to be decommissioned?
The guys that I was with, it was a little bit of, but it was also a little bit of excitement because now you weren't going to spend the whole time on one ship. You were going to get to go on other ships. And some guys didn't want to leave. Some guys was like, oh, those are just rumors. They've been talking about that forever. The Jerseys ain't going to get decommissioned. And when they got decommissioned, it was a shock to a lot of guys. A lot of guys didn't want to leave. You know, they were like, oh, man, I got to go to another ship. I don't know nobody on that ship. I don't want to leave. But it is what it is. You got to go.
So when you left the New Jersey, where did you go to next?
I went on board the USS Prairie.
Prairie, which was the tender?
Destroyer tender.
Destroyer tender.
Mm-hmm.
And how is life aboard a battleship similar or dissimilar to life aboard a destroyer tender?
Well, when I got on board the tender, being 70% women, it was welded to the pier. The USS Prairie rarely got underway, and the one day that we did get underway, you should have seen the way the females honestly would react. They were bringing suitcases. We were going for one day, and it was suitcases. People was on the pier crying. I'm saying to myself, see, they had never been out to sea. I'm like, one day. I'm like, you know how long he would be out to sea on the Jersey? We're leaving for one day? I was like, this is ridiculous. But it was what it was. And then the ship broke down halfway on deployment. I left on the Philippines. When we got to the Philippines, the ship broke down, and I left to go on board the USS Schenectady. Yeah.
And that was what type of ship again, please?
LST.
LST.
Flat bottom.
World War II left over?
No, Newport class. Newport News class, I believe. I believe it was a Newport News class.
And what was duty like aboard the LST?
That's why I really became a bosun mate, where I really took what I had learned on board the Jersey, and on the Prairie I made third class bosun mate, and I had a good BM1, a guy by the name BM1 guy, is where I really came into my own and wanted to really become a bosun mate. Because the Schenectady is an amphib. There's different navies. There's surface, there's subsurface, and then there's amphibious. The amphib navy is totally different than anything else. The amphibious navy is where a bosun mate really becomes a bosun mate. Is where he really needs to be, and that that allowed me to really develop into a bosun mate.
How is the amphibious navy different than the surface navy? You said it's very different.
The operations we do, a lot of things are focused on launching boats, picking up boats, working with the Marines, landing in halos, transporting Marines. You do a lot of evolutions that require you to be that will be deck, based upon deck, and that's where you really cut your teeth.
How did on the amphib ship? How did the Navy and Marine personnel get along? Were the Marines sort of separate because they're really not part of the ship's crew? They're assigned to that ship for a period of time, and they're a landing force. Tell me about that. How'd you
Well,
work with
they
the ship?
they were always a little separated, but we got along fine. We got along fine because remember, these are guys who have their own separate group of friends, and when they go out, they're going out with their friends, and we're going out with our friends. So we never really, although we may be in the same little, shantytown night spot, but remember, they still have their friends. I say it was cordial. Never any fights or any arguments because they didn't really participate in what we would do. They would get up, they would PT, and they had their own little thing they had to do on board the ship. But when it came time to do the evolution, such as launching amphibious ships off the stern gate, that's when we had to coordinate because they're relying on the Navy to do what we have to do so that they can do what they have to do, and everything has to be right. So we have to work together. And that's what it comes down to: coordination, respect, teamwork, and respecting each other, even though they're different branches.
Final question for this section of the interview.
Sure.
Spend 1 minute on this. How did your time in the Navy impact your life?
Greatest decision I ever made. No regrets. Still got friends in. Met some crazy people, funny people. It's taught me to, always see the silver lining. I'm rarely ever down. And I tell people all the time, I'll tell people all the time, y'all don't know what down is. Down is being out to sea for 88 days straight. And so nothing really bothers me. And I attribute that to my time serving, being in the military. You go with it. You go with it. You don't whine. You don't complain. If this is what you have to do, this is what we're doing right now. Don't worry about tomorrow. Right now is what we're doing right now, and that's what I would say. It has taught me to focus on what you're doing right now, and then go on and on and on and on. Don't regret. Don't have regrets or dwell on the bad times. Always look on the bright side. That's why I had said when I used to stand watch and I used to look and see other ships, I used to say to myself, "There's a guy over there, just as miserable as I am, and he's thinking the same thing. Oh man, when are we gonna pull in?" And that's what kept me going. That's the greatest impact. Yeah.
You're 18 years old, that's for sure.
Sure.
Now,
yeah.
we're going to wrap up this part
Sure.
of the interview for the person watching the tape, and when I turn the camera on again, Lance and I will be up where his bunk area was, and then maybe he'll take us on deck and show us some places where he worked and some of the things he did to demonstrate it to us. Would that be good?
Sure.
We have about 19 minutes left on the tape, and we'll spend the rest of the tape doing that.
Okay.
So I'll shut the...
Okay. Well, this area here is this is First Division. This is First Division. The next division up is Sixth Division, and then after that, there's my division, which was 2nd Division. And right here is where I went to general quarters at. This is for turret 2, the powder handling room. And this door will be lifted up, you know, 2 or 3 guys would lift it up and we would secure it. And it's 8 decks down. You go down 8 decks and you go into the powder handling room, and that's where these powder bags here would be lifted up and put inside of a hopper, and then the guy would turn the hopper, and then that would go onto the elevator, and that would go up into the powder magazine. I believe they weigh 110 pounds, and you would have to hump these things.
Were you trained to do this, or was it on-the-job training?
On-the-job training. You know, that was my GQ station. When I got on the ship, I was assigned to turret 2 powder handler, and I went to general quarters. I was showed where it was at. Like I said, 8 decks down, and you go inside the powder handler room, and here are the powder bags. And you would pick these up, kind of penguin walk with them, and put them in the hopper, and then the guy would turn the hopper, and that would go into the turret, and then that would go up into the magazine, and that's what they would use to fire the gun.
Was it hot down there? Dirty?
It was dirty, and it had the smell of ether, which gives you an instant headache, because ether was used to keep the powder bags dry. And the first time I went down there, it just, my head was hurting so bad. You know, it would make you a little nauseous, but more of like a headache. But you know, you still had to do your job. You know, you don't get out of it. You're at general quarters. Well, this is 2nd Division. This is 2nd Division right here. And the guy who did this was a guy by the name of DeSantos. DeSantos who did this. And as you can see, you know, every division has, you know, their artwork like that. And, you know, that's what we would do. And we would do that. And, you know, as you see, it would have, that's what it would be.
Now, is anything where the clouds are? Because I've seen a lot of clouds painted on some of this artwork now that it's open to the public.
Well, at the time, it probably said something derogatory at that time, like that. And but as I can see, you know, it's been covered over. It's been covered over. But I can't remember what it said at the time. But yeah, that's what it was.
Now, talk to us about this section over here where people slept, and about the person from the south. If you could talk to us about that for a minute.
Oh, well, his last name was Southern, BM1 Southern, like that. And this area here, right here, I take you back here. This area here, we nicknamed this the ghetto, right here. The only reason we nicknamed it that is because everybody that slept back in this little cubby hole was black. Didn't really mean anything, but we just nicknamed it that, like that, because my first class, being one Southern, was a little short white guy, and he slept right here, and you know, he would scream and holler and jump up and down, and we would have this, you know, the radio blasting, and he would come up and just cut it off and tell you, I'm tired of hearing that rap music, cut it off. And of course, you know, all of a sudden you would hear it go click, and then naturally you hear somebody say probably a curse word or something and cut it back on, and he would come back. He was just our first class. We loved him, and he was being one Southern. Now let me tell you about this pole. You see this pole right here? Okay. This pole was a break-in pole. Well, everybody got the pole treatment. No one escaped the pole. All right? Like that. And what we would do is maybe 4 or 5 guys would grab a guy, and we would put him on a pole like this. And we would slide him up and down the pole. Like that. That was initiation. I don't know if you could do that to somebody these days, but that's what.
And how the guys react to the pole treatment?
Of course. Oh, get off me, oh man! You didn't know that this was the pole.
Right.
All of a sudden, a new guy would get to the ship, and you would hear pole, 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 pole. Before you know it, he would be grabbed and
And you were given a pole treatment at one time.
Of course.
Yep.
You know, I got the pole treatment,
right.
new guy.
Yep.
And then, you know, the next guy come, he get the pole treatment. He's screaming, oh man, oh, come on, like that. And that's what the pole treatment. And that's this area back here, we nicknamed it the ghetto. But that's not my first bunk. Actually, my first rack is right here.
Up on top.
Nope. All right. So this is second division. This is second division right here. This is where, you know, my whole division slept. And I remember like it was yesterday. My first class slept right here. That was his name, BM1 Souther. He smoked a lot of cigarettes, coughed, cursed. You know, everything was, you know, a curse word out of his mouth. But that's the way the service was in 1989. Every word was a curse word. Yeah, you lazy this, you lazy that. But, you know, that's how men talk to men. You know, he had been in the service. I think BM1 Souther had probably been in the service over 20 years. And
he was
just
only
a cantankerous guy.
Only a first class.
Only in first class. I believe he made chief when I got to another ship. I believe he finally made BMC like that. And I remember, just like yesterday, he slept right here. Like that.
Go.
Okay. What I told you previously about second division, this actually says second division. Like, as you can see, he's a deck 8. And you notice his name's Escape. Okay, and he's wearing skates. In the Navy, we have a term called skating off. Means to not do your work. Get off from your work. The other sign that I showed you previously, that was also second division. But 6th division, when we split the berth, they took that and painted it over 6th division. That both sides used to be our division. And we gave 6th division that side. That's why I said that was second. And this is second here. His name is Skate. He's a deck 8. He's wearing skates. And that's what boatswainmates were known as, being decades. You know, that's what we did. That's what we did. Then when I joined the service, when I got on station aboard USS New Jersey, this was my original rack. This was my first rack. And as you can see, the TV was there. It would keep me up all night long. But I didn't care. You know why? These lockers weren't here. And there used to be a phone on this pole. And we used to commit outside phone calls. So once I found out that you could make an outside phone call, I didn't care about sleeping there. I could simply just lean on my rack, dial the numbers, and call home.
And you could be at sea when this happened, or
No,
is it only in port?
You had to be at port with a landline, like that. So once you know the guy showed me that trick, I didn't care. I didn't care about sleeping here, like that, with the TV blasting, like that. And you know, I was thinking about the TV being out at sea. You know, you would watch movies, shipboard movies, like that. Everything would be taped. Nothing was. I don't think anything ever was a live feed or off of a satellite, anything like that. I just don't think at that time we were doing that. And there are areas like this, you know, we would play, you know, backgammon, checkers, chess, like that. And this was my division. And then below here was the electrician mates and the IC men. They slept below us. So they actually had to come up out of their berth and into our berth, like that. And I believe up front were the gunner mates. I believe this was the gunner mates' berth. I believe it was. I think it was. Yeah, I think this was the gunner mates. I'm not sure, but I believe the gunner mates slept up there. I believe that's where they slept. Yeah. Yeah, the gunner mates, you know, are GLs, but yeah. Here, this is the anchor windows. This room right here is where the anchor can be controlled. It can be controlled from here, and also can be controlled from top side. But if you was to go further into there, that's the anchor windlass room where the anchor is actually attached to the bulkhead way down below. It's attached to the bulkhead like that. And my division wasn't responsible for this. Actually, First Division was in charge of this area. They kept it clean. They kept the bright work clean, like that. And occasionally we would go in there and help, but mainly in the anchor windlass room. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a hatch back there that goes down. And that's where the anchor is actually stored, down there. But as you can see, this room was always kept nice and tight with the brass work. And but like I said, it wasn't my division's job to maintain the anchor windlass room, but my division did take care of the anchor chain room down below, like that. Yeah. Okay. This is my division. My division was responsible for this area right here, but I was on this line, this mooring line right here. This is it's about a 4/4 mooring line. It's not exactly all the way forward, and it's not midships, but this was my mooring line. I was on it as a line handler. The BM2 Christopher was the lead petty officer on this line, and my division went from pretty much about right here, all the way back past the quarterdeck. We were in charge of that area. And down here is where the boats are. And that's what we were in charge, both sides. Both sides, and I believe up to the second level is second division. That's what we were required to maintain. We were required to maintain all of the decking from here all the way back. You know, teaking it, making sure that the planks, if they needed to be changed, we did that. You know, you would have to take off this plug here, or you would have to just, cut it out, and we would change the plank. We had spare planks, and the rubber is just, it's like a gasket in between, and we would put that back in there. And we would have the holy stone as well. Holy stone is with a little stone with a hole in it, and you put a stick in there, and about 12 or 15 guys would go back and forth, as normally as one of the petty officers would be wetting the deck down, and then you would switch to a next board, like that. And that's what you would do. And everybody be doing it at the exact same time. And then you would switch. And that's known as holy stone, because the deck is teak.
And how often would you have to holy stone the same spot? How many times a week?
Well, a week, I wouldn't even say a week. I would say probably every 2 weeks, because we took such good care of the deck that the deck really took care of itself, like that. Or sometimes holy stoning was used as a punishment. You get in trouble, don't worry about it. We're going to make you holy stone. And there you would be, you're going to go holy stone for 2 hours. It's better going to captain mast and being restricted to the boat. So, you didn't do what you were told. Don't worry about it. We're going to make you holy stone. And here you would be in the hot California sun, beaming down on you, holy stoning. Naturally, everybody would be laughing at you, all your other shipmates and friends. And there you would be.
Did you ever have to do that?
Plenty times.
Plenty times.
Plenty of times. I'm gonna tell you, I wasn't a troublemaker, but I had my share of getting in trouble for just not doing things I was told to do.
Now, are there any other places that you can show us that you worked on that might be interesting?
Oh, sure. Like I said, we were responsible for setting up the awning, the tarp. Being a seaman recruit, you would be in charge of going up on a ladder and lashing the tarp to the railing. Second Division took care of the quarterdeck. That was part of Second Division's job, to put up these tarps. So when we would pull in and we would have visitors, that was part of our job. To take care of the quarterdeck, to set up the quarterdeck, to set up the tarps, like that. And like I said, all the way back, all of this was Second Division. All of this teak deck, the quarterdeck, the gangplank, that was all our responsibility. And as a seaman, that was my job. My job was to help maintain the quarterdeck. So when we would pull in, we would have this all set up.
all the boards and so
all
on,
the boards,
displays,
all the
be set.
bullets. We would set that up. We would set that up to get ready to receive visitors, you know, or so the crew can come on, the crew can come off. Normally, officers use the forward quarter deck, and enlisted used aft quarter deck. So we had 2 quarter decks, one for officers and one for enlisted, like that. And our job was to maintain all of this in second division. And we want to go down and back. That was also second division.
Keep on showing us. Why don't you walk down the entire way?
Yeah. So about right here is where my division stopped. And I believe 6th division was from here back. Look, my division did have a second level to take care of, but it's up. It's up there where we stored our wire ropes and places like that. So, I mean, it's up there, I'll show you.
Okay. And what major problems did you have up in your section to work on? What would turn up the most as far as problems go?
Rust. Because it was an overhang. And the salt spray would get up underneath that overhang and form salt crystals. And you would have to either do this with a needle gun, which would tire your arms out, or in the other areas, you would set up a cargo net and you would lay on your back and you would use a needle gun. And that area that I had to take care of was down here. It was... We're gonna have to go up.
Okay.
Okay. Well, these 2 boats here. This is the top one is a personnel boat, and the bottom one's the admiral's barge. As you can see, it's bigger. It's doing full restoration. It's a very pretty boat. But this boat was actually destroyed. It was broken over a buck event, and during a typhoon, we went through a typhoon, and it tore the boat up. It tore both the boats up. It tore up the deck. It was the ship had to go to the Philippines to be repaired.
And it actually snapped this boat in half. Is that what it did?
Almost did.
Almost did.
Yeah, and they almost lost it. They had to come out here and they had to lash it down.
And that would be the deck crew having to do that then.
I didn't participate into that. That was really more the first classes and the senior chiefs, more senior guys. I mean, they had to do it while we were out at sea.
And how high were the waves at that point?
They was by probably a good 20, 25 feet.
Really?
Yeah, they almost lost the boats. They almost lost them. They had to come out here and tie them down with the mooring lines. Okay. All right, this area here, this was my area. Me and about 7 other deck seamen. We were responsible for all of the bulkheads in the deck, and the painting, the chipping, especially underneath here. This is where the salt water really would get into. You had to get up there. You got to wash it down. You got to needle gun it or sand it to get that rust out of there, like that. And as you can see, this place here with the holes, and I'm a little embarrassed to say it, but it was one of my favorite hide spots. Not doing what I was supposed to do, but I used to hide in there. But this was it. This was all mine. I was responsible to make sure that it was, well preserved, well taken care of, no rust, and that was my job, and I enjoyed it.